There are still billions of dollars available for businesses through the Employee Retention Credit Federal Tax Credit Program. Stenson Tamadon has helped companies with less than 500 employees retrieve over $3.4 billion in tax credits through employee retention credits. Call Stenson Tamadon today at 866-934-8461 today to start your application. That's 866-934-8461 to apply. Call now.
Welcome to the AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. Today my guest is Matthew Davis. He's the Chief Marketing Officer from TradePending. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Matthew, thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive right in. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and the career path that brought you to TradePending and your position today?
Yeah, sure. So my career has been a mix of entrepreneurship, sales, and marketing. At the age of 8, I was weaving and selling baskets.
Really?
To my parents' friends, right? And so that's how I got my first taste of like making my own money. In college, I transitioned to owning and operating a window washing and pressure cleaning business. Ran that for 5 years and then sold it. From there, spent a brief period of time selling mortgages. That was quite a different experience from washing windows, but enjoyable nonetheless. And then from there, I jumped over to selling software. I sold software for 10 years, burned out on that, still love the software spaces, I'm still there, but I decided to quit my job, go back to school, get my business degree, and then my wife, we already had one kid, and then she gave birth to boy-girl twins. So there's this point in time where I was making no money, running a startup, 3 newborn kids. I don't recommend that to anybody. We did everything right except for make money. So we went out of business. I was able to go back to some of our mentors, our partners, and from there made the shift over into marketing. I've been marketing software now for about a decade. 3 years ago, I knew TradePending CEO Bryce Englert before this, and so when I was looking to make that transition from my previous job to this one, I reached out to Bryce. I did some work with him for about 6 months and then joined the team full-time and been with TradePending now for 3 years. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. So 3 newborns,
right,
and working for a startup.
Right.
I mean, did you even pretend to sleep?
I did sleep, but it was not a lot. There's a lot from that period of time in my life that I don't remember. I'm not kidding.
Wow. It's just kind of a blur, huh?
It really is. But everyone's old. Like the boy's 14, the twins are 12 now. So now we're not sleeping, but it's for different reasons.
Nice. Well, I got to ask you about your shoes. I noticed them on the way in. Can you get them up here
to
show the audience?
Yeah,
let's take a look at these.
Some really special orange, loud TradePending shoes.
So what's the story behind them? How did you guys find those shoes?
Yeah, so our CEO, Bryce, was walking through the airport one day and saw these shoes for sale, went back, bought them online, and now the leadership team at TradePending has these really nice, lovely orange leather shoes that we wear just for special occasions. So this is a special occasion, so like we should all feel very special right now. And the fact that you guys have made the table here kind of TradePending orange, that's a nice touch. Thank you for that.
So those are the NADA Visit AutoSuccess.
That's right.
Weddings and funeral shoes.
I think so. That's a good way to say
it. Cool. All right, but let's dive into the car dealership stuff.
Sure.
Sourcing inventory. It's been an issue for a couple years now. Every dealer's struggling to get more cars. You know, can you share with us a little bit about, you know, some ways that dealers can convert more of their web traffic into trade leads?
Yeah, this is something we think about a ton, right? So as a dealer, you're investing all this time, money, and effort into driving people into your website. Now, how do you convert them, right? And so there's, first of all, just the fundamentals of you need the right tools in place, whether that's a dedicated trade-in tool, a dedicated chat tool, a dedicated payment calculator, just something that is there that is going to capture those high funnel people that it's really quick for them to complete that process so that they get what they need very quickly. So that's kind of step number 1. Step number 2 is it has to be easy to find, right? You don't want to have stuff buried in one little subsection of a menu, right? When you see TradePending customers, you see on the homepage, there's really big calls to action, say value your trade. We're on the SRP, we're on the VDP, there's dedicated landing pages. And the reason for that is we've done this study for coming up on 8 years now. The number one reason that people go to dealerships' websites, no surprise here, they want to research new and used inventory. But the number two answer for the last 7 years running has been they want to know how much their car is worth. And so if you are burying that, if it's on just one little simple form, you are ignoring this huge swath of people that are there on your website to figure out something about their car.
I'd like to talk about service for a second. You deal with a lot of dealerships, so you kind of have a unique perspective in that you get to see a lot of what works, what doesn't work. Do you have any like best practices or tips or tricks or something like that you can share with us that you've seen in action in dealerships where they're taking their service customers and converting them into vehicle acquisition opportunities?
Yeah, obviously this is a lot more of a hot topic, which is how difficult it is to source inventory. And there's some very fundamental things here, again, that you can do. I feel like this is going to be a theme, like, hey, it's just kind of back to basics time, right? And the things that have been proven most popular are just the most simple to execute upon. So the one we hear requests for a lot is like, hey, I just want to have hang tags in my car. When that service work is done, I'm going to go throw a hang tag on the mirror and it says, do you want to know how much your car is worth? Here's a QR code. You can scan it. Super simple to do. It's a couple $100 a month to print these out on Vistaprint, whatever service you want to use. That's a really, really simple one. Even simpler than that is just printing out small signs to place in the waiting area with the same type of message, like, hey, do you want to know how much your car is worth? Scan this QR code and find out. If you want to take it to a little bit extra of a level, you can have print out essentially that market report. Here's how much your car is worth, and hand it to the customer when they're getting that completed repair order back to them there. So those three simple things right there are things that we have our customers doing today. And in some cases, they're sourcing a few cars a month from that, and it's just hardly any extra effort from their team whatsoever to pull something like that off.
Nice. Let's move on to email. Email marketing is something that some dealerships have a love and hate relationship with it. We all did too much. I'm guilty of it too. When I ran a BDC, when I learned that I could send out an email to everybody in the database, and this was like
it's glorious, just firing guns, spray and pray, anything,
yeah. And so, everybody, we've all been guilty of that. But email marketing today, is there a secret sauce to it? I mean, is there anything that you can share with us about that would be a tip or a trick, for dealers to use email marketing to source more inventory?
There are just some very simple, basic things you can do, and so some of these ideas actually have just come up through the ranks of the TradePending sales team as well too. So we have dealers that have been wildly successful sourcing inventory through email, and the way that they do it is just so simple and easy, right? So the secret here is, and this, sometimes it kind of hurts me to say this as a marketer because, I like all the well-designed, glossy, everything looks really nice and professional, right? But we have seen that plain text emails coming from a person, written like a person actually wrote it to you, just absolutely crushed performance versus the slick, glossy marketing stuff, right? So that's, I don't know if I'd call it a secret, but just sending a plain text email to people with links in there like, hey, here's what's happening in the market, here's how it might impact you, we're here to help you, do you want to know how much your car is worth? Simple messaging like that has proven really, really effective. And so then it's not just about sending the email, it's like, well, what happens after that? So we've got documentation on this for our customers as well, but it's like, hey, here are sample emails now that you want to have in the CRM ready to go so that you're quickly following up with people, you're responding back to them. There's no question about who's going to do what or when the emails are going out. The sales team needs to be ready. The BDC team needs to be ready because there's going to be an influx of leads when this happens. So you want to have a little bit of process tightened up after that as well too.
Cool. Well, now some dealerships, well, not just some, lots of dealerships now have dedicated departments or dedicated teams of people who's, it's not a salesman who's looking through, like cars that are for sale and trying to convince people to come in. I mean, these are people that their job all day, every day is to buy cars. Do you have any like stories you could share with us about a dealership who's really knocking the cover off the ball? I mean, somebody that's really killing it?
Yeah, there's some great examples of this right now as well on Automotive State of the Union, which have been really fascinating to listen to. We have an example that's super close to home. So TradePending's headquarters are in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, the home of University of North Carolina, go Tar Heels. And there's down the road on Interstate 40, there's a town called Graham, North Carolina, and there's County Ford there. Steven Stearns there is their director of pre-owned. A few years ago, he just started on his own to build out a buying center, and they have done a phenomenal job there. They've grown from one person up to 4 or 5 people. They sit in a room. They are dedicated to the private party listings. They initially started by looking at both Craigslist and Facebook. The last time I caught up with them, they were just focusing on Facebook listings. They're occasionally using some technology to help source that and manage that process. But it really just comes down to they had a very, very clear process, very clear talk tracks of here's what we're going to do and how we're going to execute upon it. And this small town dealership is executing on inventory sourcing in a big way. They're sourcing 80 to 100 cars a month, not just from their market, but regionally. And I think the thing that was most interesting about this to me was that they were taking a simplified approach to it. So they would get some basic information from the customer, get some basic information about the vehicle. They'd plug it, they may check it against vAuto, and they would come back and say, we will buy your car for this amount right now, without having to go out and do a full appraisal on it. Knowing that on some cars they're going to absolutely kill it on, some cars they're going to potentially not have a great deal or maybe lose a little bit on, but that vast swath, that 95% there in the middle, they're going to make money on. And so they've been able to make a really, really fast, clean process that they can execute upon really quickly, and that a few people can source a ton of cars every single month.
Oh, cool, cool. Now I'd like to talk about some trends. I mean, you're knee deep into trade values all day, every day, right? And you work with a lot of dealerships. Tell me about the TradePending 100. What is it?
Yeah, so this was birthed out of the pandemic. We wanted to keep our eye on the overall health of the used car market and then the valuations of those cars. So the way our valuation methodology works is we're actually tracking the prices every single day of vehicles listed for sale in a dealer's local market. We start with a radius of 25 miles around that dealership. We expand out as far as we need to get a meaningful sample size. So we're able to see what's happening in the local market. But when the pandemic was happening, just the values were all over the place. So we built the TradePending 100 to look at the 100 most listed vehicles on franchise dealer websites. And to be clear here, like the data that we're not looking at any third parties. We're not looking at Auto Trader. We're not looking at CarMax, Carvana. We're not looking at independent car dealerships. We're just looking at franchise dealership listings because that's our customers. That's the market we're most trying to represent. And so the TradePending 100 just tracks those 100 most listed vehicles, how their prices change over time, how long they're listed for sale on the site. And so you get this picture, much like you would with the Dow Jones or the S&P 500. It's kind of easy to understand that anybody can look at. You don't have to have a degree in statistics to understand how the market is performing. There's no indices, there's no nasty graphs or anything you have to really worry about. It's just like, all right, here's these cars, here's how value is trending. What can we learn from that?
Well, what are you seeing right now? Like what are the trends that you're noticing?
Yeah, so probably no surprise to anybody is that the values have begun to depreciate again. So over the last 12 months on these 100 most listed vehicles, the values have declined over 16%. So they're coming down, right? It's definitely a market correction. It's a return to normal or maybe to a return to a new normal, but it's not spread evenly out over the makes and models, right? So you've got the fuel efficient or more fuel efficient sedans that are more moderately priced, these used cars that are more affordable, those are still appreciating, right? It's only single digits, but it's just a little bit, right? Those are the ones that are getting harder and harder to buy and harder to find. And so like the more demand, the lower the supply, the price goes up, right? On the flip side, you've got the big trucks, the OEMs that are really heavy into those, and those values are depreciating quite a bit faster.
So what's the takeaway for dealers? Where are we headed?
Yeah, so I think what it really amounts to, and it's a theme we're having through this talk, is just getting back to basics.
Yeah.
Right. So that's making sure that you have the processes in place, the people in place that you need to be able to execute on sourcing more inventory, to be able to take all that money that you're spending to drive people to your website, to be able to convert on those effectively. We're going to be getting back to this new normal, and that also means then returning back to those previous processes that you were already executing and building upon previously.
All right, this is the last question. It's kind of shifting gears a little bit. You've been a marketer for a good portion of your career. With your marketer glasses on, what changes do you see taking place with the way dealerships market to customers, and what do dealers really need to focus on, moving forward?
Yeah, I think my thought here is that it's not necessarily something you consider a traditional marketing topic. It's not talking about ad spend or which channels you're going to market into. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's more of the customer experience, right? So you've had the big brands, Carvana, Vroom, these onlines, they're really pushing this new direction of being able to do everything online. And it's an amazing experience. We'll show up at your door. Well, franchise dealerships have been doing this for a long time. It's just packaging that up and putting it into a meaningful package that people can understand. And then simplifying the process for consumers. And so a great example of this would be Wilsonville Toyota out of Oregon. And they've adopted this mantra of no bull, right? And it's a single person throughout the entire process. Mm-hmm. And so from a customer experience perspective, they can walk through, they can deal with that same person the whole time. Instead of a 4-hour process, it's a 90-minute process. And to me, that is one of the best forms of marketing any dealership can do, right? Because that's going to build that brand loyalty. They're going to go out and tell 10 people as opposed to 2.
Yeah.
There's a great example of this, Marysville Toyota out of Seattle that I just read about this morning as well. They're doing something very similar. And their Google reviews are just through the roof, right? So that's incredible marketing. That's incredible branding. That's not traditionally where do I need to spend my money this year? It's really focused on consumer experience and making sure that really delivers in a way that people actually love.
Cool. You know what? I want one more question.
Okay.
One more question. We've got the time. Google Analytics 4. How do you feel about it?
Well, no, I got to take that back.
Yeah.
But it's right. So when you live and breathe software, you just have to live and breathe in accepting change because things are going to change on you all the time. With Google Analytics 4, right, it's just another one of those big fundamental changes. There's very much going to be some pros. The way that they're going to be reporting on event data is going to be a little bit cleaner. The data should be truer in a sense. But anytime that you have to kind of upend how you're building your reports, the way that you're communicating, the way you're evaluating that data and viewing it, it's just a hassle. There's no getting around it, right? So even from our side, from a marketing team perspective, it's a challenge, right? Yeah. And I do feel like it's going to be a little bit harder to get to the data that you used to previously be able to see. Mm-hmm. But it's one of these things once you figure it out, you learned it, you move on, and now your life, in theory, and hopefully is better as a result. It's a stretch to say that my life is going to be better because of Google Analytics 4, but you never know.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Matthew, thank you for joining us today. Is there anything more you'd like to share with the audience?
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you for joining us for this AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today my guest was Matthew Davis, Chief Marketing Officer from TradePending. Hope to see you soon.